Welcome, everybody. We're here to present to you John Deere versus the industry. And as Ryan mentioned at the beginning, if you haven't yet, scan the QR code that's up here on the screen to get a copy of your dealership score, which we'll be talking about as we move into today's session. If you want to click ahead. I want to go ahead and give you a little bit of an introduction on who Satisfied is, and I'll introduce our panelists before we get started with today's conversation. But Satisfied has been working with John Deere and Deere dealer groups since 1998, so for nearly 30 years. We're focused on collecting feedback from both internal customers, so your employees, as well as external customers, which we'll be talking about in today's session. And at the same time, helping you take the feedback that's being collected to promote and grow your business as well. Aside from keeping it just internally and how we can get better through process improvements, but how can we attract new customers as well as delighting those existing customers that we have today. And then a little bit just quickly, because we got asked to explain more about how we work in this process.
It's just slow.
So Satisfied today integrates with a lot of your key business systems, including like Equip and IntelliDealer. And on your behalf, we're able to queue up communications to go out and ask your customers for feedback and thank them for the experiences that they've had with you. With that, we do a lot of digital communications through text messaging and emailing, as well as phone calls to solicit that feedback on your behalf. And as customers are happy with the experiences, as I mentioned, we're trying to leverage that more publicly through Google reviews as an example, which we'll be talking about in today's session, to better understand how we can promote the dealership, sharing that information back on your website through social channels as well. And then, of course, there are those situations where maybe we didn't meet the mark and customers may be unhappy and we need to follow up with those customers. Through integrations like Expert Connect in our own internal system, we can route that feedback to the appropriate teams to make sure that customers are getting resolutions to their problems that are addressed. So we'll be talking about a lot of that today. And at the same time, understanding how you compare to the competition, which is really critical. So what are your competitors doing? How do we meet the mark? So we talk about John Deere versus the industry. We'll be talking about how those scores compare to either your local competitors and those individual results you may have just ran, as well as at an aggregate. How is John Deere doing when we look at reviews compared to the rest of the industry? So with us today, I have our guest moderators and panelists to join us. And to my left, I have Ted Rand from RDO Equipment, and will be sharing with us.
Yeah, that's good.
What was that?
I was cheering.
It was cheering.
Thank you.
That's good.
Got a broken record, right? With RDO Equipment and sharing from his best practices over the many years that you've been doing this, his expertise in marketing across several locations, regions, and COGS. And then I had Hannah Roth. It's also that's coming from 21st Century Equipment, who also gets the privilege of also handling James River, Core Rivers Equipment, and sharing her expertise with you all and what they're doing to take customer feedback, help improve SEO, GEO, AIO, all of those key things that we might be hearing today in the marketing world.
EIO.
Yes, all exciting stuff. And then Ryan Condon of Satisfied will be moderating today's session. So get started.
Awesome, thank you. And thanks everybody for coming to our class, and Ted and Hannah. The one thing that I like to do with these type of classes is I like to turn them into much more of a kind of a dialogue. So in today's session, when we go through things, what we'll typically do is we'll cover a topic, we'll have the panelists talk a little bit about their experiences at their dealerships, and then we'll throw it out to the audience. So if you have an example of where you're doing something that you think works well, or a place where you stubbed your toe, or something you want to share with the group, I would really encourage people to share, because the more interactive we all are, the more we're going to take away from today's session. And my real goal in these sessions is to give you something to take back to your dealerships to drive improvement in your own dealerships. So once again, think about if you have any questions too for the panelists, and then we'll kind of go on and move through each one. So there's no real need to save your questions to the very end. And honestly, if we don't get through all the content that we're gonna, sort of try to get through today, that's fine. I'd rather get deep into some good conversations and learnings versus try to power through everything. So Did anybody get their email or see their results from the QR code? You want to share one in the back there? Yep. What do you got?
Yeah.
What I'm really curious about was, are you surprised by what you saw? When you think about volume, rating, recency, sentiment scores, when you see that feedback that we're collecting from Google reviews, what are your thoughts?
I think recency was a low score.
Okay.
I'm not sure how.
Is that surprising at all?
That.
Confusing, maybe a better word.
Okay.
I'm not sure why.
Yeah.
Overall, a lot of the ratings were fairly high and good,
Good.
but the recency is the one that stood out the most to me.
Okay, awesome, thank you. Anyone else want to share what they saw on theirs? Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk a little bit for the panelists here. Reviews are really kind of what we're calling the digital front door, and we have our website, and we're getting a lot of traffic on our websites, obviously. Ted, you talked a little bit about the amount of traffic that goes to RDO and kind of how you perceive customers are experiencing and shopping end-to-end digitally. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. One of our goals at RDO for my team is how do we turn our website visitors into purchasers? We see our unique visitors month over month increase and continue to increase. And I want to figure out more than just conversion, or what are we measuring? What's important and what are they looking for? And so we're spending quite a lot of time trying to uncover that journey a bit and uncover what exactly, number one, if I need to de-anonymize people who visit our website. That's something that we're doing. I also need to figure out, okay, so what is keeping people on page? And I feel like the data that we've been using for a long time is helpful, but there's so much more out there. So we're really in the midst of gathering, of sort of reimagining what does this experience need to be. And part of that is also customer sentiment. There are two things that we're focusing on from an AI position is trustworthiness and authenticity. We feel like those two factors are going to help us drive our positioning when it comes to GEO, AIO, all of the AI. And so part of that is, what do customers say about their interactions with us? And what do they say both on the Google machine and in reviews, but also what are they telling us through our surveys, and how do we surface that data and that information more seamlessly on our website? Does that help?
That was amazing.
Oh,
Absolutely amazing. It's
so
so
amazing.
easy.
So, yeah, makes it sound real easy, yeah.
Hannah, thoughts about how you are looking at kind of that combination of the website and reviews and integrating all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Ted hit the nail on the head. We obviously look at our online presence as a location. It's an investment. And I know sometimes marketing gets the bad rap of having lots of expenses. And it's a big expense, and it's worth it. It's just like keeping up a showroom storefront, right? And so it is the first location that your customers come visit. And so all of your digital properties should be seen as a location. Secondly, when it comes to reviews, I think, just to kind of make sure that we hit all the bases here, we were looking at it at 21st from a perspective of just reinvigorating our sales organization and getting them refocused on customers first, and utilizing that feedback to make sure that we were doing what we needed to do as a customer service from a customer service perspective. The Deere surveys give us a little bit of insight to what's going on, but ultimately, there's also other places that they're reviewing us, and we can use that for feedback as well. And it just contributes to that journey, that buyer cycle of how they view us, and what others are saying. It's the new word of mouth, right? When you go online, you're no longer just asking your neighbor or friend, you're asking some random person in the neighborhood how their experience was at that store. And you see it in form of Google reviews, Facebook reviews, and all those other places that we see for unbiased opinions. So it's highly important to us and what we do. It's something that we have to consider part of our normal cadence for marketing.
Awesome. Ted, do you have something you want to add? Or
No, I think that I love that. I mean, I love that you mentioned that our website is like a storefront and the investments are important. I also would say, like, as I'm smiling because as an industry, when we think about customer reviews, Google reviews, there's many of us that still find that to be a bit ridiculous. Like, why on earth would we lean into these reviews in our business? This doesn't make sense. But it is having an impact on our business in ways that are seen and unseen. And if I could, this is the one area that I would honestly stick my head in the sand.
It's true.
100% stick my head in the sand. I don't want to pay attention to the reviews. I don't want to read them. I don't want them. This is the Google side. I don't, because it's just not my jam, but yet I know that it is so incredibly important. So I lean into the response that I get from leaders within an organization that really, could this make a difference? And yeah, I actually can. And not everywhere, but it does make a difference. So that's why I was kind of
Yelp
smirking.
is always the one that's a little.
Yelp, because nobody wants to
Right?
pay for Yelp. But boy, Yelp, I just wish I think I've said this too.
Yeah.
Like, I want Yelp to go away. Yelp, Yelp, go away. Go Yelp, go away, Yelp. I don't like Yelp. Record it, put it down. Done.
Two things that makes me think of from JDoug so far. The first one was, I've heard this before and I didn't realize it was still an issue. People have said, listen, the salespeople have had a pretty easy go of it for a while, and now it's a bit of a challenge. And they can't just sell equipment sitting in the dealership anymore like they used to be able to. And I think I've heard that for a couple of years. And so now they're saying, hey, we need to make sure we're training the salespeople and making sure they're delivering on the experience, right? And I think another great opportunity to get some candid feedback on whether or not those salespeople in your organization are actually delivering on the experience or not. Critical. The other thing I thought was really interesting, Ted, it was sort of a little bit off of what you said. Another dealer shared how, historically this business has been very relationship driven. And as the leadership in the dealership has been changing, so has the leadership on the producer side. And we've got these younger generations coming up and taking over family farms and things like that. And the quote was, they're less relationship driven. They're more ROI, they're more analytical, they're more calculated, they're more likely to go online and leave feedback when they don't feel like you're doing a great job. And I would say 5 or 10 years ago, because of the critical nature of that relationship, maybe people were a little less likely to do it. Maybe they were an older generation and things like that. So once again, to sort of reiterate what's being said here, I think we have a bit of a change in guard. We have a change in approach. We have a willingness to share public feedback because that's how the younger generation operates. And so, staying on top of it and understanding it's critical. So great. Before we go on to the next, anybody want to share anything cool they're doing in their dealership in regards to reviews or collecting them or anything that you heard you want to ask a question about? I demand one question. Yeah, what do you got?
Not a success story, but about what you put something to say. I mentioned, but I was already loud. So you mentioned that, the newer generation is coming in, they're more analytical, they're more online looking at reviews. Some of the dealers I've been working with in Canada, especially on the aftermarket side, we're doing a couple tests in the marketplace right now, and where we're finding we're having a lot of success also with the younger generation is going back to that relationship and calling customers rather than, and they are doing as well, like the TikToks, the Reels and all that stuff, and, focusing on their website and reviews, all of the things you're mentioning. But there's a lot of success still in calling and building that relationship still. Is that something, are you finding that in the data as well? Is that trend also going up, or is it going more in the direction what you were mentioning of online and reviews and things like that? What are you seeing currently?
I'll take a swing, but go.
Yeah.
What do you?
So, I think we're always going to be a relationship business. I think the moment that we talk to a customer, we have to assume that they know a lot more about us than we expect them to know. So it's a part of their journey. It's not a part of their final decision. Our relationship is incredibly important. what I'd say is think about it in terms of channels and their intentions with how they interact with those spaces. So when somebody is interacting with researching where to find parts, and maybe they already have an established relationship, I think they're probably searching around for what their options are, right? So that means that there's a broken relationship there, and we need to make sure we're showing up in that space as a reminder. Yep, we're still here, and other people have had experiences. Where we start to see negative feedback in our reviews are typically when relationships have broken down. And our job in marketing is to make that kind of bubble to the top and make sure it's expedited as a resolved issue as soon as possible. And it can't always be resolved, but it's our duty to make sure that senior leaders know that our relationship is broken. So I would say it's a combination of everything. And the channel in which they're engaging is an intentional channel for them. So TikTok may be a research space for that grower. Like they may be learning about precision technology and they're engaged with that content for that reason. They're still going to have a conversation with their precision ag specialist. And so when they go into that conversation, they have a genuine conversation around the solution for their application.
I think what we're dealing with is our customers are choosing to reach out to the dealer further down the purchase funnel. And there's plenty of data that would support that situation, meaning they think they know the answer to their question long before they reach out to us. Now, this has been a trend for a long time. And so rather looking at that trend from the lens of we don't need salespeople, you got to look at it through the lens of this is when we absolutely need salespeople, because we need to inject ourselves much higher in the funnel when they're having deep and meaningful conversations, so that they look to us, they continue to look to us as an expert, as somebody who is there to help them, is there to answer their questions, right? And so I look at all of this data that shows people just that are validating our website. 94% of consumers validate their purchase online. Nobody's shocked by that percentage. Nobody. So we have to be better because I still believe it's a boots on the ground game. And we're going to drive our business when we engage with our customers, both on the large ag side and our construction side, but also in the consumer business for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. I would tell you that I think, to Ted's point and Hannah's point, you have to be doing sort of everything, right? You have to be having the conversations. You have to be checking Yelp, Google reviews. You have to be doing all of this because you have different relationships in different stages. And as you bring those relationships along, they're gonna sort of interact with different approaches with your organization, right? Yeah. I also might know a dealer group that does something called deep dives. No one in particular. And what's really cool about those deep dives is they actually send employees out to engage with customers and learn about their business. And sometimes, those are technical folks, right, that are doing that stuff that aren't necessarily as comfortable doing these type of customer interactions. But if you think about that as really early in the funnel, post another sale, but early in the funnel for a future sale, like what you're doing is you're effectively fostering a relationship that's deeper, that opens that channel for future communication, right? Now, is that customer less likely to leave a Google review? Who knows, right? Like they still may feel like that's their avenue for communication, but at least that door is open and you've communicated to them, I care about your business. I want to learn more about how we serve you. And the other thing that pops into my head is when we were at the booth, down on the floor, there was a Deere booth called Customer Insights, which immediately I'm going over. Like, what is Customer Insights? And so apparently and somebody may know more about this than I do, but it's about using technology to better understand the customer's needs, the technology that they need paired with the equipment they need, so that the salespeople are more empowered to be able to provide a holistic solution that has a deeper understanding of what the customer really needs to deliver, right? And I'm looking at that going, well, that's awesome because we have data about how the customer's feeling and what they think about engaging in the business. And so if we could pair that along with your technology suggestion and your equipment suggestion and give the salesperson a holistic understanding of what they need and how they feel, so that when they're having that conversation, they can understand whether the previous experience was fantastic or really a difficult challenge and the salesperson's going into a a bad situation that they need to recover, like all of that, all the information makes a sales experience better, I think, for the customer. So long-winded answer to your question. Anybody else want to ask any questions or say anything about that? Cool. All right. I'm going to introduce some of you to something you may not have heard before. You heard it up here just a moment ago. Everyone's probably more or less familiar with SEO. It stands for search engine optimization, right? And it's where you're making sure that your keywords and things on your site and stuff like that bubble you up to the top of Google when somebody says, hey, I want to buy a tractor, or I want to do this. And somebody used to click on that link and go directly to that, to your site, and because your SEO is optimized. Well, you also heard Ted mention GEO and AIO. And so has anybody in here heard of GEO? Anybody? Bueller? Nobody? Awesome. So GEO stands for Generative Engine Optimization. AIO stands for Artificial Intelligence Optimization. And what is super cool about where things are headed, probably cool and not cool in some regard, but what's really cool about where things are headed is we are now having situations where someone's going to ChatGPT or Gemini and they're saying, hey, where should I buy a tractor? Now the question is how do you make sure that your website has the right types of data to be able, so when the crawlers are crawling, to be able to pull that information into the OpenAIs, the Geminis and stuff that you guys are bubbling to the top. So let's start with Ted and Hannah. What are your thoughts about where this is headed? How are you thinking about what you're going to do with data or websites, or how do you get to a place where, I forgot to add one more thing, that zero click, right? That zero search click, where someone is now getting the results independent of clicking on a link in Google. So what are your organizations thinking about how you're going to get ahead in this game?
I spoke to a bunch of RDO equipment sales professionals this morning by Teams. They're in a training session in Salt Lake City, and one of the sales people asked me the question, what keeps me up at night? And this is my answer: is AIO, GEO, AI in general keeps me up at night. And mostly because at some point, I don't even know when it was, it feels like just a few months ago, but when the switch was flipped on the Google machine, and you all saw it, and maybe you saw it right away, and maybe it took a while for you to recognize that when you search on Google, Gemini pops up, the AI generated answer is what pops up first. And the zero click piece is the people that read that and do nothing more, right? And so how might we be the source? How might John Deere, how might the dealer be the source in that environment? And how do you optimize your content or your business to be that source? So I'm asking that question because I don't frickin' know, but it's like,
Great.
right. So that's so funny. No, I mean, look, this is the biggest thing. And so how do we do it? This is where we're shifting our entire digital strategy to consider this. And it's a big move for us. We've worked so hard to be awesome at SEO. And now it feels like I don't care about SEO. I mean, of course I do, because it still does matter. But how might we create content now that signals trust and authority? Again, I told you those are the two areas that we're going deep on, is that we know that trust and authority through multiple sources is what drives those engines. And so how do we become the source where people trust what we're saying and they know that it's coming from an authentic source and an authentic position? And so how do we do that over and over and over again? And we're trying our best at it, and we're focusing on a strategy of what are the questions that customers are asking us, asking our salespeople, and how are we answering it, and answering it over and over and over again. But it is a very, very big thing, and if you're not thinking about it, if you're not considering it, you will fall behind, for sure.
Gotcha.
What are my ideas? Not the fake forums on Reddit. No, not at all. So, I mean, look, I think if we only have, RDO has to be famous. Oh, sorry. RDO has to be famous in our AOR. We don't have to be famous everywhere. We have to be famous in the area that we can sell. And so we only have to be relevant to people that are searching for new equipment in a very small area. Now, from a used position, there's a whole different strategy, but from a new position, how might we capture that very local, very relevant search intent? And so I firmly believe it's funny, we used to say, feel like we have to do twice as much content, 3 times. Well, today we actually feels like we got to do 10, 15, 20 times the amount of content. And the way we're doing it is through video. We're heavily invested in creating video and snippets and slices of multiple videos that we can share and reshare and put out into the world that creates that trust and authenticity. So there's a lot of things we're doing, but I'm not going to fill out fake forms on Reddit, or I'm not going to do there's a lot, and also there's a lot we just don't know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I feel like it's a little wild westy, right? I also would say that, we're doing a lot of things already that have built this base pretty well. Now it's getting super intentional about where we want to show up, because as soon as you activate all 230 something dealerships into this space, right? How many dealers are out there now?
Well, don't look at me. I know. I can tell you the construction dealers. I
mean,
don't even know what the ag dealers are. It's
No
easier.
longer are we going for the first page, right? I mean, I would love to achieve just the first page in a lot of these searches within SEO, but now we have to go be the resource within that one search, right? Like, it is the research cited. I don't know if that's an achievable goal.
I know.
It is. It's such a high attainable goal that I'm almost thinking about, where do I want to be really good at? Where do I bite? My brain just can't, like, the enormity of that, right? I have to bite size this into small little pieces. And so when I think about that, we're doing a lot of great things right now that help us we've started to invest in the video, and we've started to invest in how-to videos. And I would say, even 2018, I think, is when we started to go over to more transparent pricing online. There's a lot of trust we've built over the past, 10 years that wasn't there necessarily before as a dealer. And so I think we've done a lot of good things to give us a good basis for this trust. I think as dealers, our core values it's all in integrity, trust, respect, right? We're all in that kind of same category. And so I think a lot of those things that is already unique to John Deere dealers. I'm not saying that the Kubota dealers are terrible, but you know what I mean? I think we've done a lot to get to that point already. The things that I would say are important to us are really figuring out, how do we, like Ted's saying, localize that search result somehow. Is it coming up with more content around, the reference points to who dealers are and how they fit into that channel? Because I will say, I think that's one thing that's really confusing in our channel. Dealers, people can't grasp the concept of what a John Deere dealer is and how we're separate from John Deere. And if you notice, that's a lot of that, PR backlash that we're getting the brunt force of some of that John Deere PR nightmare that's going on right now. And they're targeting the dealers with that. And it's like, no, we are separate. So I'm trying to think about, how do we really maybe amplify the dealership in that result, and say, this is how we come up with our pricing, and this is how we're different than maybe John Deere, because I think right now they're pretty much the same in a customer's eyes. So those are the thoughts I would have in addition to Ted's. And I credit Ted. We were just talking about this last month, and it's hard to wrap a whole team's mind around, how do we change and shift? It's going to be a big lift, and it's pretty significant. It's not, I will say, if you have a marketing professional thinking about this direction, give them all the support you can. Get online with your cell phone, and give them some video content. It's going to be an all team effort. It is not just your marketing team's effort to have a digital footprint anymore. It's going to require our sales teams to get engaged and get out there with transparent conversation. And the alignment in that is going to be the hardest piece, I think.
It's interesting that you mention, the difference between a dealer and the OEM, in this case, John Deere, for sure. I agree with you. We're separate entities, but the reality is that we as in customers' eyes, we are one. And there's value there. We're partnered with one of the top 5 most recognizable brands in the world. So there's a lot of value there, and our equipment is superior. So there is value, but there's also a difference. And so the challenge that I suggest is, like John Deere's goal should be creating awareness constantly. When we think about AIO and creating trust and authenticity, John Deere needs to be the owner of that piece in such a big way. Whereas the questions that are being asked of us is, how do I buy? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? What's finance? How do I finance? Do I continue? Why am I denied? How do I demo? I mean, just the simplest, if you just looking at what search intent is, it's crazy what people are asking, and that we're not answering, by the way. And we're trying to answer those questions now because we think that's valuable.
It's great. I was going to say, I think one of the things that I've read about, with ChatGPT trying to figure out how to further monetize the value of their solution is it's going to go right after a Google AdWords, right? And they're going to figure out, how do we localize it? How do we make sure we do a better job of bubbling up, the content that's relevant to the customers that are looking for equipment? And one of the things I get pretty excited about, and this is going to turn into a bit of a small sales pitch, but we are effectively content generators, right? So we're out there every day asking your customers to provide us genuine, trusted feedback about how you're delivering on that experience. We're collecting reviews. We have widgets that you can put into your website so you can see all of the content on the website that then crawlers from OpenAI and Gemini and stuff can crawl that content. And I would say, as much as you guys are learning, what about GEO, we're learning the same thing. So we're starting to say things like, okay, wait a minute. Is our widget that you can take from our site and plug into your website so you have more authentic, real content on there, is it optimized for the crawlers? And so are we, originally it was optimized for being able to display to people that are going to the site to check it out. But now we have to have optimized for 2 different people. The people that are coming to the site to look at things, and the crawlers that are going there to try to collect this content. We've had some other conversations with dealers. They're like, well, do you want to become kind of a trusted third-party source that validates dealer performance? Because then now it's another data point of authenticity where you're an expert in the ag industry or the construction industry, and people look to you for authenticity and credibility, and if we're pointing back to the dealer. So much like everybody else, we're kind of finding our way as well. We don't have it all figured out, but I definitely see this coming, much like you guys. And I think if you're not on top of this and you're not figuring out how to generate content all the way up and down your organizations, you are going to be left behind. So
one of the trust signals is absolutely, what are they saying about you? And so the Google reviews and the public reviews are great, but the reviews that we capture from their satisfied surveys, what people are telling us or what they're sharing in a very authentic and meaningful way through the survey, how are we beginning to surface or work to surface those comments on our website and publicly, so we do become, that, and it isn't so much it is for the crawlers, it is for AIO and GEO for sure. And these are customers that, who've been with us for a long time. And they say great things, say nice things, but they've said those things within the privacy of a survey and with us. So we're trying to go back now to say, hey, can we make this public?
And we're working through those things to figure out how to say yes to Ted and how to say yes to the customer and figure it all out.
Yeah.
All right, so questions, thoughts, comments about what we just shared around GEO, AIO? Is anybody doing anything cool? Any questions for the panelists? I demand one question. Come on, somebody's got to have one question. Somebody's got to be doing something neat.
So a lot of what you guys have been talking about is just generating your own content to I guess get more visibility.
Yep.
And I know you want to be, you want to target your area. And I know this is new, but in my area, so I actually went on to ChatGPT and asked who the best lawn equipment dealer was, and it said West Central Equipment. So I thought that was good, but I noticed how it'll show you where some of the sites where it pulled that from. So we always do our local awards. So that was one of the main ones that it pulled from. So other than content, would it be good to target more of those in our areas? or do you think that's less
It's content.
than just content? Well, oh yeah, I guess it is content.
Yeah.
I mean, instead of just making your own, would you be more reputable if other people were writing about it?
Yes.
Oh,
Which
100%.
still goes back to
And
the
that's
forum
standard.
thing,
It's standard. That's a standard SEO practice, right? The references and backlinks to your website. So yeah, absolutely.
Which we're terrible about. Audio's terrible about. We'll just
See.
throw that out there. We are horrible in the backlinks and sharing that. So let's
It's
just
hard.
transparent.
Yeah, same.
But yes, one thing why AI, so you do work at, that's your dealership.
Yeah.
So your AI is also learning from you. And so AI likely, ChatGPT likely knows you work there. So you get to, after a while, ChatGPT does begin to tell you how brilliant you are. And so when you ask the questions, I'm pretty sure that if I were,
who's the man?
it is exactly that. And oftentimes when I will ask a question in there, it will respond, as a senior marketing professional, you should consider this. I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, ChatGPT. But yeah, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
I get that all the time. That is an absolutely excellent question. Well thought out,
Yeah.
really insightful, Anybody else? Yep, go ahead.
How are you positioning your ask for resources internally with leadership that are going to give you budget? Because they're still going to be asked for SEO, I would imagine.
Go for it. I can share after.
Okay. I think we've established some best practices just for SEO purposes, right? I mean, SEO, we consider, social media part of our SEO strategy just because of the way YouTube is used as a search engine. And so some of the segments that we really target with 21st Century's Farmcast, we have a podcast, but ultimately that's a way to promote our Precision Ag services. We know that is a constantly changing story, evolving story, and to produce one blog on that once a month is just not reasonable. That's something that's an ongoing conversation. So we stood up kind of a podcast style for that topic, and of course that is used in SEO. They pull out all of your transcripts out of that video, and it's used to generate results not only in SEO, but now in GEO. So there's a lot of things that we're doing, like I said, but there's a lot of good things we're doing already for SEO that will translate. When it comes to additional resources for GEO, I think we're still figuring out what additional means. It may just be a shift of what we are currently doing into slightly different formats, or it may be tagged differently, or it may be configured in a different way. I think like I said, we have a lot of good processes. And I'll tell you, not only is it good from an SEO perspective, but it's good from a boots on the ground field perspective. We have our sales teams being asked about certain things that they wouldn't have just researched via John Deere's website, right? This is stuff that we are articulating in the Farmcast that they're asking about. And so we do know that it's working from the field perspective as well. For more of our turf segment, that one is the harder one. There's the same daggone topic. You can only talk about a 1-series tractor for so long, right? And so that one's a harder one to dig up, and that's where you really have to lean into your sales organization and start evaluating what are the topics that could be easy wins for everyone. If they knew this about the tractor before they got to the dealership, you're trying to help expedite that sales process when they're there, right? And I think those are the things that we need to dive deeper into. I think the basis for what we're doing in terms of what we've invested in video already, it's there. We just may have to tweak some things. But I would say for maybe a dealership that's just starting on this journey, you're absolutely right. We're going to have to say, this is the going rate of a person dedicated to this position doing this content. That is a new that's a new concept for a lot of dealerships that don't have video content in-house already. I explain it like I explain our team is built like a service shop. If you want to work on combines, you have to have someone that's trained in combines, right? So you have to invest in that person, and they have to be churning out work. So, and we know what that investment costs. The difference between marketing and service shop, we don't get billable hours, right? That's a little harder. And so to outsource those things, that's the only thing that we can compare it to is how much would it cost if we outsourced this? And that's where you start to get some cost comparisons. You know you need it. And so what are you willing to invest in it is the real question.
Such a great question about resource allocation and how do you argue for it, because I think that's something that we all do across the board. And I'm willing to spend less in some areas and to allocate those dollars in the fight for position from an AIO or GEO position. But to talk to leaders, the thing that I know what gets my boss is the numbers, right? So I take a look at, so I'm spending way more time on marketing, sort of the marketing mix models, and also MTA, so multi-touch attribution, and some of these things that how much, getting to the point where how much money for every dollar we've spent, we gain X. When you can tell a story that every dollar I spend, I get $8 back. Now that opens some eyes, right? Right? Gets in people's attention. So that's where I'm focusing my energy is when I can tell that story, then it seems to be an easier conversation. But let's be real. If you look at your P&L and you think about what you spend and your organization spend on marketing and advertising, it is a very low percentage of the overall budget. So I would argue we've always been arguing for resources, right? We've always had to figure out what does that look like. And I think I think that the expense is necessary. We're going to be spending more on digital technology, I think, than what we're comfortable with. But I also think that we can still manage it within a respectable sort of framework. Again, like we don't have to be famous everywhere. You know, I've watched for how many years we've watched organizations build up their TikTok channels, and their views are wild. The views are wild at some of these organizations, and some of the best channels are gone because of acquisition, right? Or somebody left and nobody's doing that. Nobody's keeping that content rolling. Well, what happened to their business? Probably nothing. You know, their business is still solid, they're still growing, or they're still in their area because all of those views that come from way outside of their area of responsibility didn't give them anything. And I don't mean to dog on that, that's just the reality. And so in my mind, if you work within what is most important for your dealership, you can tell a better story to get leadership approval.
That's exactly why I like to always check in with our field team. If they're hearing about it, or if we check in on some of these topics that we know should be hot buttons, to say, have you heard any changes in the field? That's my verification. I know that's such a rudimentary metric, right? But if we don't hear our customers confirming that they were influenced by some of our activities, then it's not, like to your point, it doesn't matter how many followers or views we had in that case.
We just need to be highly calculated with our moves so that we're good stewards of the budget dollars that come our way.
So in regards to SEO versus GEO, we may not have an answer to this yet. Is it similar to sort of TV and internet advertising? Like, are you reducing one while increasing the other? Are you keeping SEO stagnant and you're raising GEO? Are you lowering SEO and increasing GEO? Like, you know what I mean? Like, is there any, it may be too early to answer that question.
I think the strategies for managing good SEO and AIO are very similar. And so at least that's how we have operated. So I wouldn't say that we're spending less on SEO, but I would say we are definitely, I would say our human capital is spent on AIO right now. So we may have marketing technology that's working for us in the background, but I would say our hearts and minds are shifting right now toward AI. I mean, I have a team that is, we have three pretty solid goals as a team this next 18 months, and all three of them have some sort of, they're all sort of baked in AI and AIO and how that is generating business for RDO.
So just to clarify that too, maybe
I spin that a little bit to say that we're not really spending less.
Okay.
But if you want, I'm spending way less money on traditional advertising, more and more, because I can't track it. And I only have so much budget. And so I use a reach cost quality formula. I don't have to reach everybody. I need to be high quality. So there's only so many tactics we're going to deploy.
Yeah, and all I was trying to get at is if these people leave this room and they think to themselves, oh no, I've got to double my budget, or hey, I'm keeping things the same, I'm just reallocating, or I'm doing somewhere in the middle.
I would say there's probably a middle ground in there. I think a lot of the, like I said, I think there's a lot of basic things that we're doing that feed both SEO and GEO, and there are tactics within that same budget that are just adjusting, right? There might be a need in the future. I'm not saying that there's never a need, like you mentioned, paid search or how it shows up and where these new markets evolve.
Yep.
But I do believe that at the core of it, it's just changing strategy, which changed, like you said, more of where your team's focus lies.
We have to be better with data. You know, one of the reasons I'm sitting here today a little bit is I want to be in the good graces of our partner on Satisfied. I appreciate Satisfied quite a lot and what they bring for us. But we have to be better as an organization to utilize the data that we're collecting with Satisfied and figure out, okay, so how might we take this, the idea of net promoter and our scores, how do we take this to the next level? We're learning all of this data about Satisfied, being a customer being truly satisfied with us or not satisfied. How are we matching that up to revenue? How are they matching up that to the how often or how frequent they purchase? Like, what can we learn from every data source that we have? I would say that's the other piece of this puzzle for us to be really successful is we have all of this data, and and we've been saying for years that the data is what's going to change this game, but really, honestly, today, that's never been more true. And so it's not so much allocation of, it's just a frame, it's shifting the focus. Mm-hmm. My marketing team, we're a large ag dealer too, and it's been a great time to be an ag dealer, for the last year and a half. So my team is 7 positions down from where we were a year ago. We didn't hire and we went through, a reduction. So look, we're fighting for every penny.
Great. Yep, go ahead.
You guys actually serious chaotic content as far as videos, and at the pace that it's advancing right now, what's available right now with those dedicated platforms, you can generate pretty good content if you dial it in. How do you guys see that change if you're able to generate a how-to video in 45 seconds, and how are you guys going to integrate that into GEO, and just how is marketing going to shift?
Well, I have a good example. So we were talking about kind of this generational shift, and how I would even say that in the sales organization, we have a lot of new people coming in, a lot of people leaving. And so I don't know if this is where my head's thinking, because it just happened to me. We produced 60 videos, walk around videos, around, all these great things that these tractors can do. The guy left and went to Bobcat. Now I have 60 videos I can't use, and I have to reproduce. That's a lot of content, guys. That's a lot of content. So I would love to just produce, a 21st century or the backyard guy that is my host of my walk arounds. I would love to go to that point, right? So I don't have to worry about redoing it. I think there's a little bit of it where I don't know if our industry is ready for that, so it's a timing thing, I think, right? That trust factor has to be built up enough to produce something like that. I think it's there. I think we could probably do it. Where we're using it are simple reels, the things that are quick and easy, down and dirty. We need to produce, content really quickly to fill our quotas. But where I would love to see it be used is in training, walkarounds, and making sure that we have a voice that can stand for a long time on our channels without having any competition in mind. So I think they could be a good chunk of it. I think we have to earn trust locally too. So like Ted was saying, the answers that we need to be answering would be around pricing, availability, configurations for our markets, right? So, But I do think like, your simple walk-arounds, how to use the machine itself, right? Yeah.
We use AI quite a lot in our content development, and the ways that we're using it is through prompts and solid prompts. We have very good writers on our team, and they will be better writers. They know they're better writers when they can utilize AI in their favor. So if we through the right amount of prompting, we can create articles that look just like articles that we've been writing, and they are approved by humans, we're going to win. Also with video, look, we've got 90 some locations that if we're going to promote CCE across nearly every one of our locations, and we want to run promotions that are very localized, we can't afford to create video for every one of our locations. So we do utilize AI to make sure that we're changing video that matches the landscape. The voiceover quickly changes to match the community that we're in, and and we do that within minutes. There's so much opportunity there. But as Lacey, I have a team member sitting in the back. I mean, we've got one of the problems we're dealing with right now is that and this is off track a little bit. Everybody now is a creator. Like we can create great work. Look what I just did. I just created this image and it happens to have 3 hands, but we're gonna but isn't it a cool caricature? We should put that on our website. No, you're still a salesperson. So you still sell. I don't care that you can do that fun thing on AI. We'll figure that out on our end, but you still just sell. You don't need to do that part. So I think the challenge that I have from a marketing perspective is demonstrating to our organization how well we're going to use AI to be successful, so that we're all better, but still stay somewhat comfortably in your little silo over there, and we'll stay in ours.
Awesome. I'm going to keep us rolling along. Obviously, you guys can always come after Ted afterwards or Hannah and dig into some of this stuff further. Great information, though. All right, there we go. Okay, so one of the things that I wanted to show here was, when you got your scorecards, that you emailed in the beginning off the QR code, we showed your one location performance. And so you can see here that from a Deere versus the competitors, the ratings are about equal. That's the first bar there, right? 4.5 and 4.5. But when we look at volume and recency, Deere is a laggard from the competitor perspective. And this is where we went out and pulled a whole bunch of competitive equipment dealer data down, and then pulled the Deere data down from the tools we have to be able to do this. And so not surprised in the back when we talked about the fact that the volume or the recency is low, right? So the real challenge is, how do we start getting more reviews back, and how do we make sure that they're coming back on a frequent basis? And so just quick, the two of you guys, any suggestions or approaches that you're using to do that?
They did not pay me to say this.
Oh, here it comes.
But yes, we, I was fortunate to come across in a merger with 4 Rivers and 21st Century. At 4 Rivers, our ag locations, prior to our merge, was using Satisfied in our process, and we had a pretty consistent flow of Google reviews coming through. We came over to 21st. I don't think we were a part of that program, or it got lost in the merge, basically, and we saw it shut off. Shut off. So, we have done, our team is really focused on reaching out quarterly to our stores and just trying to keep it at top of mind. We did competitions to try to keep it relevant, but we recently turned Satisfied back on in the dealership, and I would say the difference is the quickness in the way that you guys ask for feedback almost immediately upon purchase. Right? So that relevancy is really, really important for how quickly you get it out. And then that translates super easy back into Google. So I would say we saw it from the hard facts of life of having it, not having it, and then turning it back on again. So like I said, they did not pay me to say that. I'm not getting any kickbacks.
Ted, how are you guys doing it?
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think we're doing it all that well. I think it's hard. And that, one of the challenges that we constantly are dealing with is Look, we were on our own for a long time. We built our survey, we did our own surveying, and it turned into be a bit of a mess. So we were with Satisfied, at one point came back to Satisfied, and it's been a game changer for us. I think the reporting, the data, the partnership, all of that has changed. But there is an element of like we are asking our customers, John Deere is surveying customers, we're surveying customers, and oh, by the way, please leave a Google review. It's just a lot. And so I think if we're in a heavy consumer market, and if I'm in Denver, if I'm in that market, I mean, I'm not sure how, like in some of our markets where
It's a volume thing.
It is.
So it's a numbers game. You know, if you don't ask, you don't get. You have more opportunity to ask in these locations, those high market areas. But some of the best places that we saw growth were our large ag spaces, middle Nebraska, right? Like, so, I mean, I think it is, I don't know if I've seen like a simple science. The difference I would say about our launch back into Satisfied this last go round was there was a very intentional conversation that Keith Krebs had at every location talking about our refocus of customer satisfaction and that we are becoming number one in our industry for that, right? That was a huge deal that set the precedence for when we are rolling Satisfied back out to our customers. You know, we take these very seriously. They're going to be a part of our metrics. They're going to be a part of our conversation. So it wasn't just flip the switch. It was an intentional cultural shift by our leadership.
Awesome, thank you. I'm gonna fast forward through a couple slides here as we're running low on time. One of the things I did want to show you, King Ranch grew the reviews 10x in 90 days. It was a pretty cool case study. I think we may have something on our site about it. If you want to go learn more about that, just a great example of as you're looking for content, as you're looking for volume and recency and things like that. And then this is a really cool, just a kind of quick dealer playbook. As you're thinking, walking away from the session, make sure you're doing the right things as far as claiming all your Google profiles. I've seen some crazy stuff when I've logged into business profiles as far as configuration and setup. Make sure you're responding to reviews. Drive those consistent review requests, whether you're using a product like ours or you're doing something internally. Keep that recency and volume up by making sure you're asking for those reviews. Analyze those trends. Share those reviews. Remember, we're focused on GEO, AIO, all that kind of stuff. The review thing is definitely critical and helps you improve that. And like I said, we're all still learning though, right? So we don't have all the answers on this, but we're definitely continuing to go through it. This visibility and trust, right? This is a critical component of what we're all talking about right now. So it directly equals revenue. So figure out how to create this visibility, increase the trust with your customers, and it will lead to revenue. So this is a quick thank you and a QR code if you want to learn more about what we want to do, or reach out to Emily, who's in the front up here. Thanks, Ted and Hannah. Awesome, appreciate it. Thank you everyone for coming to our class. If you have any questions or anything you want to talk afterwards, please come on up. Otherwise, email us. We'd love to chat.
Thank you.